Fantastic. All right, there are my slides. Hopefully everybody can see those now. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today here. The topic, of course, for the presentation, as Mirko just suggested, was data leadership and specifically strategies for effective data leadership. Now, as was mentioned just during the intro section, I used to be the global head of data and analytics for Pizza Hut's digital business. Now, coming into Pizza, it was a digital business, yes, but Pizza Hut itself is a very well-established, long-standing organization. I think it was 1959 or thereabouts that Pizza Hut was established. So when you're coming into an organization like this to help run and build and run the data capability, you face a lot of challenges as a data leader. First of all, you're entering what is known as a legacy business. It's a pre-internet, scalable technology kind of business. So when you're coming at things with data, it's not always the easiest thing to get off the ground and to grow. Often, well, in my case, there was no established data function really before I arrived there. So that was one of the jobs I had to do. I was battling, particularly with some of the restaurant side of the organization, battling with it's always been done this way kind of attitude that you sometimes face in older organizations. Another part of my role is to help establish an experimentation mindset, which didn't really exist previously. I was also working with stakeholders who hopefully it's fair to say, in many cases had low data and technical literacy. And a lot of what happened in some of the corners and areas of the organization was instead of data-driven business decision-making, it was a lot of gut instinct and experience and intuition-driven decision-making. So it's possible that many of the people on the call will resonate with that kind of sensation as you embark upon leadership within your organizations and data roles. Okay, but enough about that. What are we going to talk about today? What is on the menu for this conversation on strategies for effective data leadership? First, we're going to take a look at what I mean by data leadership specifically, common challenges that are experienced by data leaders we'll also dive into. Then I'm going to get into the meat of the topic. We're going to talk about why I believe data is a business discipline and not a technical one. Now, sometimes people will disagree with me on this, but I hope you'll wait until you hear my reasoning as to why I say that. The other thing I'd like to take a look at today is reversing the service desk dynamic, shifting the dynamic from being a help desk in data to actually being a function within the organization that helps to deliver value add work. And then finally, we're going to take a look at strategy. And I believe that data is inseparable from strategy. And to be successful in data leadership, we need to know how to align data work with organizational strategic objectives. So we'll take a look at that as well. First of all, who the hell is this guy who's talking to you? My name is Tristan Burns. I go by Tristan or Tris online. I don't care what you call me, as long as it's one of those two things. I'm originally from Australia. I've been in the United Kingdom for just come on 9 years, almost to the day. As I mentioned, I was the former global head of data at Pizza Hut Digital. Prior to that, I worked in oil and gas, investment banking, tech startups. So I've had a fairly varied exposure to data and data in organizations. Today, however, I am a coach, a data leadership coach and advisor, and I focus primarily on helping data leaders become more influential within their organizations and having and taking on a more elevated role. Okay, so we do need to define this. What is data leadership? There really are two pathways within data leadership. There is individual contributor and there is people manager. An individual contributor is someone who is, generally speaking, more technically orientated. They are extremely aware and capable in a technological sense. They lead the organization in terms of advising and giving insight as to what technologies might be suitable for the organization to invest in and deploy, how things might be done extremely well, and so forth. But they typically don't manage individuals. They are nonetheless data leaders. And I want to make that very clear. When I say data leadership, I do not want to exclude individual contributors who are those thought leaders and are valuable contributors to their organization. They are still leaders. However, for the conversation that we're going to have today, the focus is going to be on people who are essentially people managers who lead data organizations in that sense. So they'll manage a team. We'll take a look at what they'll do. The responsibilities of a people manager within data leadership, they help. Their responsibilities include setting a strategic vision and leadership for the organization, team management and development, stakeholder collaboration and communication, technology and infrastructure management, and of course, data quality and governance. These are the key roles. There are many, many more, and don't get me wrong, this isn't everything, but these are some of the key roles of a people manager data leader. So henceforth, when I say data leader, I'm referring to these people. Okay, what are some of the common data challenges that data leaders experience? Well, this is just a short list, and there are many, many more, but in my coaching and in my advisory work, these are some of the ones that commonly come up that data leaders are experiencing. They are suffering through having under-resourced data teams. They suffer through lack of recognition for their contribution. Many data leaders find themselves in what I would call a player-coach mode, not to be confused with coaching. Player-coach mode is where you're both the manager of the team representing the data capability at a strategic level, but you're also involved very much in the day-to-day of things. You're on the field and you're directing play. So it's a difficult place to be being a player coach. They are excluded and removed from strategic decision making. They're not in the conversations about strategy. They are often considered to be a support function and not a business partner. So they feel like they're somewhat of a secondary citizen within the organization because they only support the business rather than contribute to it. And largely, data is seen, a challenge that they face is that data is seen as a technical discipline. Now, for the purposes of today's conversation, we're going to focus, as I mentioned in the contents page, we're going to focus on these three areas of the challenges. This is like I said, by no means exhaustive. There are many, many more challenges that data leaders face and experience. But in my conversations and in my work, these seem to be the ones that keep coming up that people really struggle with. So let's focus on those today. Okay, starting with data is a business discipline. If you know me from LinkedIn or if you followed me there, you'll know that I say this quite often. I say that data is a business discipline, and then in a small voice, I say with technical components. I think the same is true of finance, of HR, of marketing, of design. All of those disciplines also are business disciplines, and they also use technology to get the job done. The key difference, perhaps, with data is that we're not only responsible for using data technology, we're also responsible for maintaining, integrating, enabling, and getting the data capability up to speed. Nonetheless, that is much of the how things are done. Nonetheless, data is still a business discipline. It doesn't matter that we're more technically involved than other business disciplines. It just happens to be the case right now. Okay, one of the reasons why I strongly believe that data is a business discipline is that it is essentially at the core of every single business domain. Now, I don't mean in a structural or organizational sense. I mean every single domain within business anywhere in the world today touches data. Sciences, sales, user experience, customer, manufacturing, finance, operations, all of these areas of business, domains, if you will, generate, use, make decisions based on data. They are all consumers, interactors, relevant to data. So therefore, those of us in the data organization really need to be familiar with the businesses as a whole that we work for, because we are supporting or partnering with, is perhaps a better way of saying it, all of these different capabilities within the organization. There is data that is collected for all of these. We need to know how our data supports each of these business domains in a business sense, not just a technical sense. Another reason why I strongly believe that data is a business discipline is that strategy, and I will talk about strategy a little bit later on in my piece. But organizational strategies are increasingly reliant on and informed by data. I've created a little flywheel here, the way I sort of see a really highly optimized organization working. The data that they have informs the organization's strategy, what they decide to invest in terms of business initiatives, goals, things that they're going to go after. Sorry, that's the initiatives, things they're going to go after. And off the back of those, they will require in place targets and KPIs to see whether or not the organization has achieved its goals. That creates more data, which then informs new and more optimized strategies, which then inform new initiatives, and so on and so forth. And you see this, the more effective an organization is at basing its strategy on the data that it has, this flywheel starts to get faster and faster and faster and faster. And organizations become more data efficient and more strategically efficient. If you remove data from this system, thing falls down. Okay, another reason why I believe that data is a business discipline is because data investments require a strategic focus. And you'll see this in many, many, many organizations, when an organization's data capability is technology-led, that is, they decide a new technology comes on the market, a new capability comes on the market, and they decide to invest in it without really thinking about their strategy. They'll go and spend a lot of money, they'll hire the engineers, they'll hire the architects, they'll hire the analysts, they'll build the technology, and then once it's up and running, they'll turn around and say, well, now we've got this capability, should we find out what's possible? Should we see what we can actually achieve with this technology that we've invested in? The problem with this strategy is that this approach is that there isn't any strategic alignment here. We're literally being led by technology. And I'm sorry to say that this usually doesn't result in great outcomes commercially for an organization. However, when an organization is business-led and strategy-led, it makes sure that it invests in aligned technologies. Whatever it decides to do from a data strategy standpoint, from a technology standpoint, it is clear how that supports the business overall. It is clear what strategic initiatives the business has decided to go after that this technology supports. Therefore, you end up with the right business and customer outcomes. Well, hopefully the right outcomes. You can never be certain, but you will be much closer to it than if you were to use the other strategy, which is a technology-led strategy. And finally, the other reason for me believing that data is a business discipline rather than a technical one is that performance measurement requires familiarity with levers that drive business outcomes. What does that mean? As data people, we need to be very familiar with the data that we are analyzing, with the KPIs that we are producing to stakeholders in terms of how those KPIs can be tweaked or can be adjusted or can be looked at to see what the business outcomes are. If we're not familiar with the business outcomes are from those levers, we can't rightfully advise the business with data. Okay, so what does it look like when data is seen as sorry, I should say technical discipline, my apologies. So what does it look like when data is seen as a technical discipline within an organization? Well, oftentimes you'll see that the most senior data person reports to a CTO or a CIO. I'm not taking an attack on that structure. Sometimes that is very suitable and very relevant. But largely, when I hear that a data leader is embedded within IT or technology, I feel that there's often little scope for them to be across the organization's overall business. And it's much more heavily focused on what they can accomplish technically. Sometimes that is important, but it is oftentimes just a convenient place for them to be, and sometimes indicative of a technology, data is a technology discipline mindset. The other thing that you see is that data is excluded from the formulation of business strategies. Data leaders are not invited to conversations about strategy. They're often not informed sometimes even of what the organizational strategy is. Another indicator, thousands of dashboards and nobody is looking at them. I hope this one hurts a few people. Well, I don't mean to hurt you, but some people will read that and go, yeah, that's my organization. We have all of these dashboards, we've invested all this time and money in, and nobody looks at them. Okay, Next one, which we're going to talk about in a moment, is that data teams are treated as a service desk purely for reporting. You will consider that organization treats its data team as a technical discipline when when the only way that it sees its data team is as a reporting capability. It doesn't see the value add potential that exists within data teams. And finally, companies that see data as a technical discipline often invest in data projects without an aligned data strategy. And we looked at that on the previous slide. They are technology led, they are excited about technology projects, and they don't necessarily ensure to align the things that they invest in a data sense with their overall organizational strategy. Okay, the problem caused when data is seen as a technical discipline are we see limited return on investment from our tech investments, limited business literacy and integration with business problems for data teams. So data teams themselves don't understand what the business does, how the business makes money, what makes things tick, and they don't integrate well with business teams. We see a reactive rather than proactive problem-solving approach. So data teams are often the last to hear about things. They get sent requests, they get sent data from across the room, and they're not proactive in the way that they solve problems. And investment in tech for tech's sake. And I'm looking at you, AI, when I say that. I'm all for AI. I love it. I think it's great. But a lot of companies are all on the AI FOMO train right now. And they're thinking, oh, let's invest in AI because it's cool, not because it has a strategic relevance to what we're doing. Okay, so what are the strategies for helping your business rebrand data as a business discipline? Well, education across the business in terms of business literacy and data literacy, both for business teams and data teams. Better collaboration with business teams. So I like to see data individuals working very close hand in hand with their business counterparts. I'm not necessarily talking about organizational structure. You can operate a hub and spoke model, you can operate a federated model, you can operate a centralized model. It doesn't really matter, but data teams need to be in constant conversation and very familiar with what is happening within the business disciplines. It's a core part of what we do. And another thing we really, really aren't good at but need to get better at is to better showcase the results of our work. Use internal mechanisms throughout the organization to let people know what the data team is capable of, what successes it's had, how it might have supported another domain, another discipline. Use your internal comms teams if you have to. Write them a letter and say, hey guys, we want to work out how we're going to share our wins. What can we do? So really get good at selling. All right. The next one, a bit of a bugbear of mine, is the service desk mentality. A lot of data teams, like I said, operate in this ad hoc solutions role. They exist within the company to answer questions. They get work thrown at them over the fence from the business. So what do I mean by service desk mentality? So data teams are seen as places to send requests for information or data. They're told what is needed by whom and how urgently it is needed. Many organizations see a service desk as the raison d'être, or the reason for being, for data teams. Thought I'd throw some French in there with the Olympics being on in Paris. And data teams are expected to provide data quickly and move on to the next task. Now, I wonder how much that resonates with any of you out there working in organizations, because this kind of dynamic I see very, very often. So what problems does this service desk dynamic actually cause? Yeah, sure, Tristan, it's a lot of businesses work that way, but what are the problems? What's the reason you don't like this? Well, for one thing, organizations who treat their data team as a service desk often send them what I call prescriptive solutions. Now, a prescriptive solution is whereby the requester of information tells you exactly what they need. They say, I need exactly this data from exactly these dates, these accounts, blah, 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 blah. And you just get told what to create. I want a chart, I want a table, I want this, I want that. When they tell us what it is that we need to create for them, it gives us no opportunity, pardon me, for peripheral investigation. How do we know what else might be going on in their business? They're not the data experts. We are, but they're telling us exactly how to design the solution we're giving them. It doesn't make sense to me. What's a better approach is for us to partner with the business, understand their challenges, and proactively solve these problems instead of having them come to us and telling us exactly what they need. The other problem this creates is that there's no end-to-end visibility of how data is applied and what outcomes, if any, are achieved. You hand data over to a requester through this ad hoc process. Are you always seeing how that's used, who they're showing it to, what questions were asked off the back of it, what decisions were made off the back of it? Rarely do data teams get this visibility. And it makes it very hard for us to know how we're contributing in a real sense to the organization. Data teams miss out on key business context, and this compounds their isolation and siloed nature. If we're just told what to do all the time, we're not given the opportunity to investigate further or to be more proactive, then we really miss out. Um, and yeah, and just generally, it creates this help desk mindset that we have a really hard time from breaking out from. So we have this reputation for existing to produce data for people. And our results in data end up having little to no strategic contribution as far as we're aware. We don't, because we're treated like a service desk, we're not, we're secondary citizens throughout the organization. We can't possibly help the organization with a strategy because we're just here to answer questions. It's largely unfulfilling and undesirable work. That's a personal perspective that's shared with many people that I speak to. But being in a service desk dynamic, it isn't a very creative place to be, and it isn't necessarily a very fulfilling place to be. And lastly, it bogs down data teams in ad hoc requests, leaving them unable to tackle more strategic or important challenges. Data leaders themselves as well are not immune from the service desk dynamic. You may be the leader of your team, but I largely see many data leaders spending up to and more than 70% of their time on ad hoc requests and service desk requests. Where I think they should be spending most of their time is on value add work with a little tiny little bit of this ad hoc requests. What do I mean by a value add work? Because I knew you were going to ask. Data literacy and culture, for example, continuous improvements throughout the organization, proactive analysis and insights, driving innovation and experimentation, strategic and cross-functional partnerships, advanced analytics and machine learning and AI, many, many more things. Actually, what I didn't include here, which I should have, is team development and management. That is an investment in our people. It's an investment in the future of the organization. Yet we get very little time to do that when we're constantly just answering questions that come back from the business. Breaking out of the service desk dynamic and reversing the mentality. How do we do that? So first of all, we need to understand the problems that the people who come to us for help are trying to solve. We must say no to prescriptive solutions. They are not the data experts. We need to be asking questions to get to the true heart of what it is they're trying to solve for. We need to develop strict intake processes. Do not let them Slack you, email you, text you, throw them across the room in a crunched up piece of paper. You must have strict intake processes. You need to collect data on your team's performance. Partner early on with business stakeholders. And here's a really great question that I want to encourage everyone to go now and ask their business colleagues. What keeps you up at night? What are you afraid will happen? What's the biggest thing that scares you in the organization or in the market? Find out what that is, because once you know that, you'll have a much better time at preempting the challenges they're facing, helping them solve those questions. Again, communicate data team wins, sell internally, attach value estimates to your insights, and always use, well, you can use other methods, but I like to use the IABI method. Look it up. Insight, action, business, impact. Any communication you have with the business on data, share that design it in this way. We need to be proactive, not reactive with our insights. And data teams need to attain business literacy. We need to attain business literacy for the data team. It's not just all about data literacy for business users. That's a very one-sided and very selfish approach. We are often very business illiterate within data, so we need to focus on that and become more business literate. And as a segue into the next and final topic, start with strategy. Ta-da! I hope you like this design. It's the word strategy with data written very small inside it. Data and strategy to me are inseparable. You cannot have a strategy without data, and you cannot have data without a strategy. These two things need to work hand in hand. But what do I mean by strategy? Well, very simply put by A.G. Lafley and Roger Martin in their book, Playing to Win, strategy means to me where to play and how to win. So the where to play is what markets are we going into, what products, etc. And how to win is what are the things that we have to do to be the top of this segment. It's very simple. And data plays a really clear role here as it helps the organization define those two things, where to play and how to win. What do data leaders need to do to be strategic? Well, they need to ensure their organizations are implementing data-informed strategies. So we need to be in that strategy setting conversation. Hey guys, the data says do this, okay? So set the strategy around that. Ensure that the data strategies directly align with overall organizational goals. So once the organization has set its goals, whatever we want to do within data needs to reflect that. If the organization says this is important, we're going after this, then everything we do in data needs to help us get there, needs to drive towards those organizational strategic outcomes. And we need to also ensure accurate comprehension, measurement, and reporting of KPIs that underpin the organizational strategy. So this is that loop that I was showing you earlier. Once the strategy is set, we need to ensure that everybody understands the KPIs that are letting the organization know its progress towards those outcomes, and report them effectively and timely and accurately. Okay, how does an organization translate into an organizational strategy translate into a data strategy? So an organizational strategy is set. We've talked about this. This is at the top of the organization. We have our organizational strategy. It determines where we're going to play and how we're going to win, and the activities that we're going to do to get there. Then comes the data strategy. So data strategy is all about people, process, and finally, technology. It's a high-level plan or roadmap that outlines how an organization will collect, store, manage, analyze, and use data to achieve its organizational strategy. The correlation between these two things must be clear. And then finally, data products and initiatives. Any and all data initiatives undertaken by data teams must align to the data strategy and by extension, the organizational strategy. Okay, so how do you, data leader, become more strategically minded? Well, personal education. Buddy up with the strategy team if you have one. Speak to your COOs and CFOs. Be intimately familiar with your organization's strategy. If you haven't heard it, go ask what it is. Ask to be included in strategy setting conversations, even if you're just listening to begin with. Use of OKRs to align team activity with overarching organizational goals. OKRs are great because they cascade down from the organization's overall goals and give everybody a little bit of the pie to contribute towards the overall outcomes for the business. And ensure clear alignment with organizational strategy on any initiative. If they are not clear, do not do them. Okay, so kind of at the end, quick rewind. What have we covered today? What do we talk about? What do we mean when we talk about data leadership? What are the common challenges experienced by data leaders? Data is a business discipline and not a technical one. Reversing the service desk dynamic. And finally, we talked about data means strategy, how to align data work with organizational strategic objectives. Great. So just very quickly to wrap up, I speak to data leaders all the time, and some of the biggest challenges that I see them facing in their career are around career progression. This is the personal things that they experience. Career direction and progression. It's often very unclear in the data space. How to be a better leader and more influential, and how to develop personally as a data leader. So these are some of the biggest things that they experience in their careers. Which leads me to just wrapping up how I might help you as a data leadership coach. So I help data leaders develop strategies to become more influential in their organizations and help them to transform the cultures of their businesses while growing in their careers. If you'd like to speak to me at all, you can hover over that QR code and you'll be able to book a free 30-minute conversation with me, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you about your career in data leadership. And I'll wrap up there with a final slide just to say, come visit me on LinkedIn. And here's a free gift for you, a playbook for creating data-centric cultures within your organization. So thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to seeing you all out there on LinkedIn and elsewhere.
Thank you, Tris. Wow, this was really nice.
I went a bit long, sorry.
Oh, no problem. I think the people have enjoyed. There was a lot of interaction. Yeah, now we are in the question corner, or we can ask questions in the chat if you like.
For me, oh right, I didn't see the chat. Sorry.
No problem. I check it on the stage.
Okay.
For the questions, but I have marked some comments. This one was from Ed Reiner, and I think.
Hi Ed, I know Ed.
And this is really, yeah. I think. How shall I say it in friendly? But I see after we have all this AI in normal companies, we see that the data become really, or it's so important, and it's become more shitty and faster. It's yeah. What did you think? Is it more important through AI and machine learning?
Data, yes, absolutely. I mean, data underpins AI and machine learning models. Organizations that have neglected their data governance and their data quality up until this point are going to have a very difficult time leveraging these technologies. They're going to end up with suboptimal results from models that they run on top of those data sets. Also, I see that there's this strong FOMO to get involved with AI at whatever cost. Companies are investing tons of money in so-called AI experts that have apparently come out of nowhere, and technologies that aren't necessarily aligned with their organizational strategy. And so I'm very for AI, and I love it. I think it's going to be instrumental in the future of our space. However, it doesn't change the fact that strategy underpins everything. If your organization has set out to achieve something, then invest in technologies that are aligned with those goals. Don't do tech for tech's sake.
Okay, I think. Did you hear?
Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah. Here. Okay, I have to mark another question. Okay, here it's Sanjay. I hope I spell it right. He says, or what can be added is data adding relation and privacy. I think
for sure.
Also part of the strategy yeah.
Yes. I didn't really go into what a data strategy included because I have only so much time, and I wanted to keep it at the leadership level. But yeah, no, data ethics, regulation, privacy, those are very relevant to an organization's data strategy. They need to obviously protect the data of their customers, the data of anyone they interact with. I think it's such an important thing. It probably doesn't get talked about enough, to be honest. Data ethics and regulations, they're essential. They protect us.
Yep. I see it. Oh, look, another Tris. Tristan Mobs. Yeah, he says, what? Yeah. Hello, all of those functions also help to enhance the performance of the other business functions. Data can help scale all other areas of the business. I see it. It's
a great statement. I completely agree. Cross-pollination, collaboration between teams, innovation centers, these sorts of things, insights that maybe the design team could take from what's happening in the finance team or elsewhere, maybe not a good example, but enabling a conversation around data across the various different disciplines within businesses is only a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's really important. And here we have a real question from Jing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry. Can you explain
yeah,
the brief more on OKRs in data?
sure. A lot of people don't like OKRs. I like them. They are objectives and key results. So they're essentially so the objective is what the organization wants to achieve or what you as an individual want to achieve. And the key results is whatever KPI will be associated with that to determine your success at delivering that. So in terms of how a KPI is cascaded throughout an organization, once an organization has decided on its strategy for the next, say, 3 years or whatever, there will be initiatives that will come off the back of that. And those initiatives will need measurement, right? Performance measurement. Those will be KPIs. So essentially, a strategy is in itself a type of OKR. And then beyond that, it will cascade down. So you'll have a C-suite strategy or OKR. And then below that, you'll have the individual team heads. Those teams will contribute in some way, shape, or form to the overall organizational strategy. This is how, and then each team will get OKRs, and then each individual within those teams will hopefully also get OKRs. So it's very clear how each individual is helping row the boat in the same direction for the organization. Each person has responsibility in some small way, shape, or form to the overall business objectives. It's much easier to describe with a diagram, and I don't have that right in front of me, but Ajinkya, if you could go and look up OKRs, I'm sure you'll find lots of great resources on that.
So the next one from Sanjay again. How we can deal with data regulations in different countries, like business like GDPR, and there's a lot of more. But I think GDPR is really, really hard.
Yeah, I mean, GDPR is it's been around for a few years now in Europe. It's a strict rule, probably comparatively with lots of other places in the world. It's hard for me to answer this question because I'm not exactly sure what he means by how do we deal with it. But I think that governments around the world are going to continually increase the protections around data, well, I hope, around data for their citizens. I think that probably a good approach, maybe some will disagree, but is to pick a really strict policy, even if you're not in Europe, and try to apply your own organizational standards to a regulation like GDPR, just to be safe and sure that for those citizens that you have or customers of yours who live in Europe, for example, are protected suitably. And so too are your own citizens if you're not in Europe.
Okay, next one. That's a good question from Renato. Is the next slide available?
It can be. I can make it available. If Renato wants to drop me well, what's the best way? Maybe honestly, I only finished it today, so I can make it available, but it isn't yet, Renato. Send me a DM. I'll sort you out.
Yeah, well, Pierre, email. I can send also to email or the PM DM. I don't know what it's called directly here in LinkedIn.
I'll put a link on this event actually. How about that?
Yeah, we can do it. Okay, then the next one from Buku about sorry.
Yeah.
What would be a better tool for requirementing building data products?
So I'm assuming that you're referring to the intake process. What's a better way to receive requests for requirements for data products? I think that's what you're referring to there. Jira is a common, popular one for creating intake forms for products, but there are lots. You could even use Google Forms for your intake process. It doesn't really matter. It's just got to be suitable for the organization. Jira is great because it allows you to know when the ticket was picked up, when it came in. You can customize the intake process, and you can measure and record and ultimately report on the data and the efficiency of your team and their capabilities and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's expensive, but that is one. But essentially, you can make your own.
Nice. Yeah, I think this was all the questions. So feel free
Okay,
to
cool.
ask more. Also, so I have a question. Have you tips to learn or teach the stakeholders to ask right business questions to a data science team or?
Okay. So I usually speak to data people, so that's a good question. But I'd have to think about that one. So you're saying how do we coach business users to ask better questions of data teams?
Yeah.
I don't know if necessarily asking questions is the right thing, but having a conversation with them. I think the more and more we are in communication with them, the better. The more we can learn about each other, the more they can learn from us, and we can learn from them. I think is important. During my talk, I mentioned asking business leaders what keeps them up at night. Like, what are they scared of? Ask the same question of the data science team. Why not? See what answer you get.
Yeah, that's yeah, I see often that it's a problem that yeah, I say I have often the problem that people doing reporting because they have to doing reportings, but they don't have any business questions or yeah, there's a
Yeah.
problem, and I've seen it often in companies to I don't know these report for reporting problem. Have you any idea how we can get out of this
Yeah.
hamster wheel?
Yeah. So good, strong leadership, being able to say no, empowering your data team members to say no themselves, and protecting them when they do say no. It's difficult to switch it off like that. To switch from being a service provider or a help desk overnight to saying no, we're not doing that anymore, or we're limiting the amount that we're going to do that. It has to be a slow process. It requires education. It requires relationship building. It requires better business literacy for data users. It requires better data literacy for business users. It is a transformational change for an organization. So treat it as such.
Yes, I think it's like a change management with data, or
Mm-hmm.
when you get data driven, then you have a change process, and we have a lot of people. Yeah, they're not in this change, feel not so good with change. It's most time we have to change, but who will do the change, and we have no one who say, "Hey, here I'm the first one."
People fear change.
Yeah. Also for the other ones here, I have also a question to the people. What's one data leadership challenge you are faced frequently? Have you any story that you can tell us? So I'm also interested here. Yeah, my is this reporting for reporting, and another one is when I join data teams, or getting there the people thinking from the tools based, not from the from a leadership perspective. So they think, okay, we have this tool and this tool, and we like to buy this tool.
Yep.
That's often faced with this problem. That's more, what can the tool do for us? And yeah, I think it's like a business question,
Yeah.
asked by business questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I think you said the answer there. It's just tools are just the how we do things, but we're in data. We care so much about tools and SQL and all these different capabilities and technologies. But at the end of the day, they are not the reason we exist. The reason we exist is to help businesses make informed decisions, to support and partner with organizations to be more data centric. Tools are just how we get there. Let's focus
Yeah,
less on tools, more on business.
cool. Yeah, then there's no more questions. I don't see
Okay.
any questions. So yeah, thank you for your time. I will do a recap ASAP, and yeah, we can talk how we can make the slides available, the slide deck available for the listeners, for the attendees. And yeah, I wish you a great rest day, and we hear you. I hear you soon, and I will write you and doing the recap. And yeah, thank you for all attendees and for your time, Chris. Sorry, it's too hard to delay. And
It's hard.
yeah, and
Great.
yeah, have a good day, all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, Mirko. Bye, everybody.